The throne room fell silent when the alien queen descended from her platform and knelt before the only human in the chamber. Commander Daniel Hayes had faced plasma cannons, collapsing starships, and creatures that could tear armored soldiers apart. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of Queen Seraphine lowering her head before him. "Human Daniel," she said, her voice trembling despite her royal composure, "my enemies have poisoned my guards and infiltrated my palace. By sunrise, they will come for my daughter." A small alien girl stepped from behind the queen's silver cloak. Her luminous violet eyes were filled with fear, yet her tiny hand reached toward Daniel without hesitation. The queen looked directly into the human's eyes. "I am not asking you to defend my throne. I am asking you to protect my child. Become her guardian, and if I do not survive tonight, become the only father she has left." Daniel slowly knelt before the frightened princess. He had arrived on this world as a soldier. Before the night was over, he would risk everything to become part of a family. 3 months earlier, Commander Daniel Hayes had been assigned to the planet Liora as Earth's military representative. The Illyrian Empire was among the galaxy's oldest civilizations, ruled by powerful noble families and protected by technology far more advanced than anything humanity possessed. Most Illyrians considered humans primitive. They mocked humanity's short lifespans, emotional decisions, and willingness to risk death for strangers. Daniel never argued with them. He simply did his job. During his first week inside the palace, Daniel noticed a young alien girl sitting alone beside a fountain. She appeared to be 7 human years old, with pale blue skin, long silver hair, and the same luminous violet eyes as Queen Seraphine. Daniel immediately recognized her as Princess Liora, the sole heir to the Illyrian throne. "Shouldn't you have guards?" he asked. Liora looked into the water. "They are nearby. They just pretend not to watch me." Daniel sat on the opposite side of the fountain. "What are you doing?" "Counting stars." Daniel glanced toward the palace ceiling. It was daytime, and no stars were visible. "I don't see any." "They are reflected in the water at night," Liora explained. "My father used to count them with me." Daniel had read the royal records. King Alaron had died 2 years earlier when his transport was destroyed during a diplomatic mission. "I'm sorry," Daniel said. Everyone in the palace treated Liora as the future ruler of an empire. Daniel was the first person who spoke to her as a lonely child. The next evening, Daniel returned to the fountain carrying a small projection device. He placed it beside the water, and hundreds of glowing stars appeared across the surface. Liora's eyes widened. "Earth technology?" "A children's toy," Daniel replied. "But don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to protect." For the first time since her father's death, Princess Liora laughed. From a balcony above them, Queen Seraphine silently watched. Daniel and Liora began meeting beside the fountain whenever his duties allowed. He taught her human card games, showed her images of Earth's oceans, and told her stories about explorers who crossed impossible distances without knowing what waited beyond the horizon. In return, Liora taught him Illyrian words. She laughed whenever his pronunciation was wrong, which was often. Queen Seraphine occasionally joined them. At first, she remained formal and distant. She had ruled alone since her husband's death, surrounded by nobles who treated every expression of kindness as weakness. But Daniel never asked for political favors. He never attempted to impress her. When Seraphine spoke, he listened. When she worried about Liora, he understood. For a few quiet evenings beside the fountain, the queen was allowed to be a mother instead of a monarch. Then, everything changed. An explosion destroyed the northern communications tower. Palace security claimed it was an equipment failure, but Daniel found traces of military-grade plasma residue. Someone had attacked the palace from within. That same evening, 3 members of the royal guard collapsed. A rare neural poison had been placed in their food. Daniel brought his findings to Queen Seraphine. "You believe this is an assassination attempt?" she asked. "I believe the explosion was a distraction," Daniel answered. "The guards were the real target." Seraphine's expression hardened. "Whoever controls my daughter controls the succession." Daniel nodded. "Then Liora is in more danger than you are." The queen dismissed every official from the chamber. When they were alone, fear finally appeared in her eyes. "My own council may be involved. I no longer know whom I can trust. You can trust me." Seraphine studied him carefully. "Why?" Daniel answered without hesitation. "Because Liora is my friend." It was a simple statement, but to an Illyrian queen surrounded by ambition and betrayal, it meant more than any oath. At midnight, Seraphine summoned Daniel to the throne room. Liora stood beside her, holding a small travel bag. The queen stepped down from her throne and knelt before the human commander. Illyrian rulers knelt before no one. "By sunrise, the conspirators will move against us," she said. "I must remain here, or civil war will begin. But Liora must leave the capital." Daniel looked toward the child. "Where is the evacuation team?" "There is no team. Every official escape route is compromised." Seraphine removed a golden medallion from her neck and placed it in Daniel's hand. "This contains the coordinates of an abandoned observatory beyond the eastern mountains. Take her there." Daniel closed his fingers around the medallion. "I'll protect her." Seraphine's voice became softer. "Our law allows the sovereign to appoint a guardian of blood, someone given full authority to protect a royal child, even against the commands of the crown." She placed her palm over Daniel's heart. "Daniel Hayes, will you become guardian of my daughter?" Daniel looked at Liora. She was trying to appear brave, but her hands were trembling. He lowered himself onto one knee. "Yes." Liora rushed forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. Seraphine closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "If I die tonight," she whispered, "do not bring her back. Take her to Earth. Give her the childhood this palace never allowed her to have." Daniel stood. "You can tell her that yourself when we return." A hidden passage beneath the throne room led to the palace's lower hangar. Daniel and Liora boarded a small diplomatic shuttle and launched moments before the palace locked down. They had barely cleared the capital when 3 unidentified fighters appeared behind them. Daniel pushed the shuttle toward the mountain range. "Are those our ships?" Liora asked. "Not tonight." Plasma fire streaked past the shuttle. The left engine exploded, filling the cabin with smoke. Liora screamed. Daniel reached across the controls and took her hand. "Look at me. Not the fire, not the ships. Look at me." Her frightened violet eyes locked onto his. "Are we going to die?" "No, how do you know?" "Because I promised your mother." Daniel redirected all remaining power into the rear shields and aimed the damaged shuttle toward a narrow canyon. The enemy fighters followed. Illyrian pilots relied heavily on targeting computers. Humans had spent generations flying through storms, wars, mechanical failures, and situations where computers were no longer useful. Daniel shut down the navigation system and flew manually. He rolled the shuttle between 2 stone pillars. The first fighter attempted to follow and struck the canyon wall. The second pulled away. The third continued firing. Daniel waited until the last possible second, then released the shuttle's damaged engine. The burning machinery struck the pursuing fighter and exploded. The shuttle crashed into a forest clearing beyond the mountains. Daniel woke to the sound of Liora crying his name. A metal fragment had pierced his side. Every breath felt like fire. Liora tried to pull him from the wreckage, but she was too small. "Leave me," Daniel said. "Take the medallion. The observatory is north." The little princess shook her head. A guardian never abandons his child. Daniel stared at her. "Who taught you that?" "You did." The remaining fighter descended above the clearing. Armed soldiers entered the forest. Daniel forced himself to stand. He gave Liora the medallion and pointed toward the trees. "Run north. Don't stop until you reach the observatory." This time, she obeyed. Daniel removed an emergency rifle from the wreckage and moved in the opposite direction, leaving a visible trail so the soldiers would follow him instead. He led them through the forest for nearly 20 minutes. Each step weakened him, but every minute carried Liora farther from danger. When the soldiers finally surrounded him, Daniel had only 2 energy rounds remaining. Their commander stepped forward. "Give us the princess. Human. You have no blood connection to her." Daniel raised his rifle. On Earth, blood isn't the only thing that makes a family. The soldiers opened fire. Daniel threw himself behind a fallen tree and returned fire. He struck the first soldier and disabled the weapon of another, but there were too many. Then the night sky turned gold. Royal warships descended through the clouds. Their weapons locked onto the conspirators' fighter. The enemy soldiers immediately dropped their rifles. Queen Seraphine emerged from the lead ship wearing battle armor, her silver hair moving in the engine wind. Behind her marched hundreds of royal guards. The conspiracy had failed. Liora ran from the queen's side and threw herself into Daniel's arms. The force nearly knocked him over. "You came back?" he whispered. "You told me to reach the observatory," she said. "You never told me I couldn't call Mother from there." Daniel laughed despite the pain. Seraphine approached them. For several seconds, the queen said nothing. She simply looked at the wounded human holding her daughter. "The counselors responsible for the attack have been arrested," she said. "Your warning gave my loyal guards enough time to expose them." Daniel nodded weakly. "Then the Empire is safe." Seraphine looked at Liora. "My empire was never what I feared losing." Medical officers rushed forward, but Daniel collapsed before they reached him. He awakened 2 days later inside the palace medical wing. Liora was asleep in a chair beside his bed, her small hand wrapped around 2 of his fingers. Queen Seraphine stood near the window. "You should be resting," Daniel said. "So should you." Occupational weakness. Seraphine moved closer. "The physician said you continued fighting after your body should have failed. Human stubbornness. You nearly died for her." "I made a promise." Seraphine looked down at her sleeping daughter. Illyrian guardianship normally ends when the danger has passed. Daniel felt a strange heaviness in his chest. "I understand, but Liora has refused to release you from your oath." Daniel smiled. "She can do that? She is the future queen. Apparently, she believes she can do anything." Seraphine's expression softened. "And I find that I do not wish to release you either." Daniel looked up at her. "Your Majesty, for years everyone around me has wanted my throne, my influence, or my empire. You wanted nothing, yet you gave us everything." She reached for his hand. "Liora needs her guardian." But I, the fearless queen, hesitated. "I need the man who reminded me that trust is still possible." Daniel gently closed his fingers around hers. On Earth, when 2 people feel this way, they normally start with dinner. Seraphine smiled. "I have studied this human custom. That sounds dangerous. I command 17 star systems. I believe I can survive dinner." Several weeks later, Daniel stood beside the palace fountain. His injuries had healed, though the physicians had ordered him to avoid combat. Liora activated the little Earth projector, covering the water with artificial stars. Seraphine approached wearing no crown and no ceremonial armor, only a simple silver dress. Liora looked between them with a suspicious smile. "Am I still required to call him Guardian Daniel?" Seraphine raised an eyebrow. "What would you prefer to call him?" The young princess looked directly at Daniel. "Father." Daniel stopped breathing. Liora's confidence disappeared. "Only if you want me to." Daniel knelt and pulled her into his arms. "I would be honored." When he looked up, tears shone in Seraphine's violet eyes. Daniel extended one hand toward her. The queen joined them beside the glowing fountain, and for the first time since King Alaron's death, Liora stood between two people she could call family. The Illyrian nobles had once mocked humans for allowing emotions to overrule logic, but Daniel Hayes had crossed enemy fire, defied death, and protected a child who was not his own, not because law or blood demanded it, but because he had given his word. That night, the Empire learned what humanity had always known. A parent is not merely someone who gives a child life. A parent is the person willing to give their life so that child can keep hers. And Queen Seraphine discovered that the human she had chosen to guard her daughter had quietly become the guardian of her heart as well.